Hey guys, this is Bebe 872 and we are here. This is your complete guide to the BIS of almost every champion in the game. First off, we're going to start off with one cost carries. Gangplank, the carry of the super composition, goes for a blue buff, Jewel Gauntlet into Giant Slayers. His augment is called Flaming Ricochet, which allows his ultimate to spread to another target, allowing him to do a lot of damage. The second one is going to be a Nasus with the augment stacks on stacks. That means Nasus will get 3 attack damage in total every time he ults. So you want to make sure he has Shojins, you want to make sure he has Bloodthirsters to heal back up, and you want Runeans to spread out that juicy damage. Uses his comp, uses hackers so that Nasus can assassinate the enemy backline first. Then we have Lux. Lux actually does a lot of damage with her ultimate. That's why you want Shojins and blue buff to make her spam. Her augment allows her second ult, so every time she ults twice, to do 260% damage of the original. Now that's a lot of damage. So even if you give her one DPS item, she will one-shot most opponents. It is very powerful. And Grosper Lulu is insane. She gains AP and HP every time she ults. So you actually have infinite damage if you just give her mana items. You want to make sure that she and her team heals back to full every time she does. So you want to go for Hextech Gunblade into 2 mana itemizations such as Shojins and blue buff. Then we have Wukong. Wukong with Cyclone allows his ultimate to get 1 more Hexa range. So if you actually make a mech Wukong, you could have this gigantic AoE unit in the front that one-shots everything. I love giving him crit tech, so I went for Jewel Gauntlet, Hand of Justice, and like a Guard Breaker, but any DPS like itemization setup works. Then we have Ashe. Ashe is also one of the best one cost like a 3-star carries. Just give her 3 flat damage items. I recommend giving her Last Whispers more than anything else. The others can be choosable, but Last Whispers is a must into any Ashe buff augment. And then we have a KO carry as well too. KO carry with Divine Ascent allows her basic auto attack to have 2 Runeans, so she has 2 extra procs. So I do recommend going for full damage, and I do enjoy those crit techs on these ranged 1 cost 3-star units. And then we have a Talon carry, but the thing about Talon carry is that you actually don't need the hero Talon augment. He's also a physical damage like a carry, like the other Ashe or like a KO. But if you give him double trouble, he does have AP damage, he has a very nice AD damage pool, and he also becomes tankier. And the only downside of a Talon carry is that it's really squishy, that it dies before it reaches the backline. So if you build double trouble and give it all those stats, you actually have a really solid composition. Then we have the tankers. Tank items in this set is very simple. Redemption is really good on 1 cost 3 stars or very high HP units because there's so much AoE damage or single target like a damage. And Warmogs and Gargoyles, usually Gargoyles can be replaced for Dragonclaw into late game because Dragonclaw gives regen, is also a very solid way to go. Now, I did write down Endless Pizza here because it does give a decent amount of healing to tanks, but usually you just want to focus on the itemizations more than anything else. Now, if you move on to the 2 cost carries, Israel is insanely powerful if you give him Shojins and blue buff into Rising Spell Force. Rising Spell Force gives Israel extra AP and attack speed every time he ults, allowing to do insane amounts of damage such as one-shot AoEs your entire enemy's team. You only need 1 damage itemization for that reason. Getting Sided Jinx is also fairly strong. I don't think she's as strong as other carries. The good thing about Jinx is that she is decent early mid-game because she's a prankster, but late game, once your opponents start to get tank itemizations and a decent front line and more numbers, she does fall off, unfortunately. Camille is also an amazing carry with Renegades. Her ultimate value, especially with adapted defenses, does so much DPS. You can watch her ultimate just kill almost everything during the mid game. Physically unstoppable with Bloodthirsters, IE, and time resolves. Fiora 3-star with supers is something that I enjoy very much. With frontline fencing, she becomes very tanky to a point that even though she's a damage carry, she doesn't take any damage. While if you build Deathblade into Runeans into her, she does a lot of damage that can melt down the enemy front line and eventually the back line. And then we have Draven. Now, for those who don't know, Draven is not an attack speed champion. You don't build Guinsus, you don't build Runeans, but he's a flat attack damage champion. So you want to make sure to build into stuff like Death Blaze and like a Time Resolve, just get that AD value, and you want it to all down your opponents one by one. It's not written on the scrap, but you want to get Axioms or anything that supports your Draven to do more damage or gain more mana, and you can watch his ultimate just one shot entire enemy 2-star like a backlines, and you'll be like, wow, that is pretty strong. Severe is a bit different in theme. She actually needs mana, so she has to go for Goins and Shojins. Also, you do want to use really good frontline units with her so that she can benefit from the healing. I do recommend Corp formation with Severe though, because both Severe augments, hero augments, are very support value, while Corp formation gives a very flat AD value to Severe, and you can also use a Senna at the same time as well too. It is very strong. Siphoning Winds on Yasuo basically makes Yasuo almost unkillable until the late game. He will be able to keep on healing back because he heals for 66% of damage, so that's an insane amount of value. So I do recommend building into Time Resolves because it can give AD and AP value because Yasuo is a hybrid champion. Yumi is a heart unit that is also Star Guardian. You want to build as much mana as possible so she can keep on spamming those ultimates, get stronger, and every time she spams, she does a lot of damage, so you want to heal from damage so your front line does not die as well too. Now we're going to move on to 3 costs, and for those who don't know, 3 cost 3-star, especially threats with Woodland Charm, is insane. You can copy your 3 cost 3-star with the hero augment effect, and that is just insane amounts of value. So if you go for Rammus into tank / hybrid damage items like Bramble Vest, Redemption, Ionics into a Woodland Charm, you can have 2 supercharged Rammuses that's going to just destroy everything. Aim Assist LeBlanc does a lot of damage. She is a spell slinger, so she will not only kill her target, but she can fling damage to an additional target as well too. I recommend going for blue buff so that she can spam ultimates, and 2 damage itemization so that she is a threat. Aim Assist onto Vayne does allow Vayne to become much more stronger. She can spread more damage, so you don't need to build into Runeans, you can just build flat damage. And on the Runean spot, I do recommend going for Edge of Night so she won't get assassinated. I feel like she doesn't benefit too much from Bloodthirsters, so that doesn't keep her alive. And I feel Edge of Night does allow her to niche in a lot more damage while surviving very efficiently. In the case of Vel'Koz, you want to go for Frostburn, and if you have Frostburn, then the moment you hit 3-star Vel'Koz and it ults something, it is nearly guaranteed lethal. You want to go for Shojins, Hand of Justice into Jewel Gauntlet so it has healing and crit damage value. Then we're going to have units like Senna, and Senna is a sure shot. Her AD increases every 4 seconds, and her ultimate is actually an AoE AD ult that applies instantly, like a Luxol from set 6. So if you just build flat damage on it, it will do insane amounts of DPS and value. So just build flat damage. I really recommend Last Whispers. You'll feel the damage. It's going to be very strong. And in the case of Sona, I don't really recommend Sona too much. I don't think Sona is that strong. I've seen a Sona 3-star deck with multiple hearts pop off, but you do need a lot of time for that composition to work. So Sona is not really a carry I recommend, but the itemizations is a blue buff into 2 damage items. In this case, Jewel Gauntlet, like a Hand of Justice. Power Grid is nice and all, but it just lacks like a burst damage overall, which is quite sad. I feel you have to build the Archangel and just hold on. Jax is a unit that works well with that Kale augment right there is called Righteous Range, so it actually gives +2 attack range to Jax. If you make a mech Jax into damage itemizations plus range, he will do a lot of damage from a distance, allowing your composition to buy time for Jax to take out the enemy one by one. So it's usually range into 2 damage itemizations, or maybe if you have range augment, you can go for 3 damage items. You don't really need a Bloodthirsters or like a Quicksilvers because usually you do take the opponents down before you get killed yourself. And in the case of Zoe, it's going to be, of course, Heartsbat into Archangels because she is a Scala. She scales damage. She's not a Busta. And the best augment for her is going to be Double Bubble for a second ult. Now then we have Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath with Energy Void does so much damage, especially if you copy it with Woodland Charms. Usually the items are tank / hybrid damage items like Ionics, Redemption, and Gargoyles, but you can also build full AP if you really want to feel damage. It is very strong. And then we have Kaisa. Usually you build Kaisa with Guizu Statics, and the third item can be whatever. Jewel Gauntlet, Hand of Justice. It can be like a Giant Slayers, Guard Breakers, anything you want. And we do recommend multi-shot as her like a core augment. Is not too bad, but I feel it doesn't really matter what augment like a Kaisa gets. The other like a carries are going to be tank units. In the case of Riven and Nyla, they have an AP ratio, so you can give them like a time resolve to heal off. But in the case of Alistar, it is usually better to have self-healing items like Dragon Claw or Redemption. And the easiest items to recommend for this set is going to be Warmogs and Gargoyles. There's Warmogs, Gargoyles, or Warmogs, Dragon Claw. And now we have our forecast. In the case of Miss Fortune, I honestly think Miss Fortune is a frontline unit. So you want to make sure to give her Buddy Mercenaries so that she will get the shield value every time she ults. And I usually frontline Miss Fortune, give her 1 Shojins and 2 damage items because of Buddy Mercenary for tank value. And I hope that I can one-shot my enemies before they have a chance to fight against me. Velvis is also the same as Jax as in the fact that she does need range. I do like to build into items such as Runeans and Last Whispers, but usually Velvis is too weak by herself to solo carry. Like, her damage output is not as insane as it potentially could be. She's solid during the mid game, but you'll start to see her fall very hard during the late game. So don't expect too much out of her during the late game for sure. She's just a mid game carry or a sub carry. You need other carries to help her do her work. Viego right now is insane. Viego is really strong. If you give him Jeweled Gauntlet, Hand Adjusted to 1 more damage itemization, anything will do. I put Giant Slayers here in this case. He will one-shot, ult, nearly everything, and not die because of the Oxford synergy. Right now, Viego is quite overbalanced as of the current patch. He is going to be very difficult to deal with. And in the case of Samira, it's the same for the Senna. You want to give her as much flat damage as possible so she can one-shot most enemy front lines and carries. And now we have Set. Set with the punch protocol can actually punch out the opponents eventually. That's also a really fun augment test out. But the most important thing about Set is his item setup. Set has a really good AD ratio, and he also has a really good AP ratio. So time resolve is actually one of the best to give him. And since he's a mech, he benefits a lot from Bloodthirsters. And since he does a lot of physical damage, he benefits a lot from the healing from Bloodthirst as well too. As a unit with high like a base like a HP value, and because he is a natural defender, it is best to give him healing items like Redemption or Dragon Claw as the last one. In the case of Soraka, you just want to build into flat like a mana itemization into +2 damage items. It can be Archangels, Hextech Gunblade, and Berserk. Cool. There's an L behind Berserk. Berserk Cool is actually very strong. After you hit the 15-second mark, her ultimate will start one-shotting every opponent down 1 by 1. In the case of Aesol, you want to give him Shojins and 2 damage items. I put Jewel Gauntlet and Hand of Justice because usually you want Aesol to focus down the enemy backline, not the front line. So we got enemy anti-carry itemizations, which is just flat burst damage. And in the case of Zed, you want to use some hackers to throw him to the backline, so you give him range and attack speed itemization such as rapid fire cannons, Runeans, and since you don't want him to accidentally die off, you can give him Edge of Night as well too. Talia is also a decent carry. You don't have to go for like a Jewel Gauntlet like Hand of Justice. You can also go for stuff like Giant Slayers or Rabadons, double Archangels, or Rabadons like a Jewel Gauntlet. Any damage items work, but I do recommend the Shojins because 1 Shojins will allow your Talia to ult like crazy with Star Guardians. Stoneweaver is a great augment that increases Talia damage so that she can guarantee 1 shots or 2 shots onto the enemy composition. Super Size makes Zac very difficult to deal with because Zac is a unit that gets stronger the more HP he has. So we can give Super Size into Warmox, that's plus 2000 HP, into Redemption and Dragon Claw, that's a lot of regen, allowing your Zac to become nearly an unkillable tank unless the enemy has Leona. In the case of like Echo, it is usually best to give him Warmox into Dragon Claw. The third item can be whatever. It can be Bramble Vest, it can be Gargoyles, it can be like Redemption. I do recommend an item that can give more armor value, so give him Gargoyles here. It can also be Bramble Vest if you so choose. In the case of like a Sejuani, we just recommended the base like tank items like Warmogs, Gargoyles into Redemption. Nothing too special here. And now lastly, for the 5 cost carries, Nunu. They see me rolling so he can get the extra movement speed, and you want as much healing and scaling damage onto Nunu. So you want at least 2 healing items. So I recommend 2 Bloodthirsters. It can be Hextech Gunblade or Hand Adjust or whatever, into 1 scaling item so that he does do damage, in which case it was Archangel Staff. Leona is also the same as Nunu. You want to make sure that she has healing so she doesn't die. I recommend 1 healing, 1 tank into 1 mana itemization. It can be blue buff or Shojin's. Anything is fine. In the case of Mordekaiser, there is 2 ways to approach it. You can give full burst damage like Rabadon's Jewel Gauntlet Hand of Justice to one-shot the enemy backline. Or you can go for a scaling Mordekaiser with not so heavy metal. You can give him Archangels, Bloodthirsters, put him in the back, and once he walks up, once he charges, slowly ults, everything disappears. In the case of Syndra, the best item for her is actually a Ornn itemization. Of course, all the other champions do benefit with an Ornn item, but Syndra was a bit special in the fact that she gets especially stronger. With 7-star Guardians, she gets 3 ults off instantly with Manazane. So the value that she has behind her itemization is insane. You have 3 more units on your board. You have 3 more like Zac 1-stars, or you have 3 more like a 5 cost like a 1-stars jumping onto your board, and the value is just, I have to say, insane. And lastly, we have these 4 left. We got Aphelios. I feel Aphelios is not a damage carry. I think he's a supporter. So I would prefer that you build into mana items more than anything else. So you build Shojins and Guinsus. You don't even need Bloodthirsters. Those 2 are probably all you need. Bloodthirsters, just make sure that he doesn't get accidentally like assassinated by random like spell shots. And just make sure that he procs ultimates like non-stop. Armor piercing rounds does remove the enemy armor, so helps that out. In the case of Urgot, there's only one way to build Urgot. It's 3 Archangels. I mean, you want to build some AP value, you want to build a survivability itemization, and you want to build a mana item into shiny, and you'll farm treasure chests like crazy. In the case of Fiddlesticks, there's 2 ways to use Fiddlesticks. You can go for Traumatic Memories and go for Carry Fiddle with Jewel Gauntlet, Hand of Justice, and Giant Slayers. And I can proudly say this strat has a 0% win ratio. Yeah, 0. So I do recommend just using Fiddlesticks with Ionics and Morellos, put in the front, and that by itself should be good enough. In the case of Janna, you just want aura items or mana items like Redemption, Randuins, or Shojins, and that is going to be it for the guide. I do hope that the guide was useful. We're going to make a build-up guide, an augment guide, and an item guide that's going to match the meta comps for the new patches soon. Hope you guys enjoyed that as well. See you guys next time.